Let's talk a little bit about the developmental concept at the time. It's written in the Observer that Vince McMahon came last week to OVW to look over the talent and gave a speech and talked about signing more guys up for developmental and opening up more developmental territories. This didn't happen very often where we would see Vince actually go to the developmental territories. Was that at your urging? Or, I mean, is this something where you're like, hey, showing face with the troops would really go a long way on this one, boss? Or why would Vince make a trip to OVW? It seems out of character for him.
It was out of character for him, but he knew the value that I had a value, and I had placed a value on developing the developmental system. Now they got a great developmental system in WWE. It's called NXT, and they do a great job with that. Their own TV show and on USA, and I see where they're going to some of their products are moving to. Oh, they're moving to USA. SmackDown's moving to USA, I think. So anyway, whatever. We'll find it. If you want to watch it, you'll find it. Yeah, it was the future of it was the bloodline. It was no pun intended, but it was the future of our business was developing new talent. I said it here endlessly. Wrestling fans love new. They love to be surprised, and they love believable new. Don't try to force somebody down my throat because that's not going to get it done. It's got to be more organic. And it was important for us. And I would suggest, I don't know the exact routing of it, but I would suggest to you that he was going to be in the area. You know, maybe we're running Louisville or Lexington or something like that. But I don't know that he would make a special trip with no other agenda but this on his docket. So but it was very helpful. It gave a lot of the guys what you always want to try to stimulate, and that is hope. It gave a lot of guys hope that the boss cares about what we're doing down here. We're not forgotten, and that worked out real well. I think Vince was impressed by that one. You know, we had that one all-star cast with Batista, Cena, Lesnar, Orton, Shelton Benjamin, among others. That was a class. You know, like Oklahoma and Alabama and other major institutions, everything's based on recruiting and signing top players. And we had a locker room full of them. It wasn't all pre-planned, but some of the guys just developed really well.
There was a report that also came out that says regarding company developmental expansion per last week, as this points to be the first new territorial expansion, what would likely be the Northeast, based out of the Trax building in Stamford that they've leased, where the wrestlers trained for the first two seasons of Tough Enough. Tampa and Atlanta have been discussed as noted, but neither is official. And if it does happen, it would likely be months to a year away, although there are plans to expand. I guess my big question is, why wasn't there ever a developmental territory in the Northeast? Is it just based on the cost of living and the smaller pay you were going to pay these guys in camp? Like, it seems like it would be very convenient to do this in your own backyard, quote unquote, from the office.
Yeah. Well, money was one issue. Budgeting. We wanted to grow it. I think Memphis was a landing spot. Louisville was a landing spot. Les Thatcher's group in Cincinnati was a landing spot. So we had the plan, but it's going to take a while to get it all executed. You know, you can build a team, but you got to have a team of players, and we didn't have a huge budget to pay these dudes. So it was interesting. An ongoing interesting development. We had to do it. So I told Vince, I don't think it's an issue of having an option. Where are we going to get new talent? You know, where are they going to come from? It's not a casting agent that does it. So we got to figure out how we're going to do that. So it was imperative. It wasn't like, well, we should. No, we have to. We have to develop this area and this project.
Hey, let's talk about SummerSlam. What a crazy show this was. It went down August 15th at the Air Canada Center in Toronto. And of course, the big story is supposed to be Randy Orton winning the world title from Chris Benoit, becoming, I believe, to be the youngest champion at the time. But instead, the story for a lot of people is this crowd. First of all, it's a complete sellout. It's announced as being 17,640 fans. It sold out weeks in advance. It's a $1.3 million gate in Canadian, so roughly $1 million here in the United States. But we haven't had a big, rowdy, raucous crowd like this since WrestleMania. And maybe it's written in the Observer that the crowd wasn't really responding the way the company had expected. And it feels like you ran into that a few times in Canada where we're presenting something as this is the heel and this is the baby face and he's your hero. Let's go cheer him, rah, rah, rah. But sometimes those fans in Canada, boy, they have their favorites and well, they didn't always go the way WWE would expect. Do you remember Vince or anyone on the writing team, or maybe even the performers, being frustrated with the reactions they got? Yes, we're glad they showed up, but that's not what we expected.
I think the biggest takeaway from that, Conrad, is what you just said. They showed up.
Yes,
They showed up in droves. What you said was $1.3 million house.
that's right.
That's a good accomplishment.
20 years
I
ago, by the way.
yeah, I can't justify or figure out or analyze any logic in being displeased with a $1.3 million gate. I always enjoyed working in Canada because the audience was unpredictable, and like you said, things that you thought might be, uh, oh, I don't know, predictable, weren't. So it was. I always enjoyed that. They were uninhibited, and I love that because it keeps you on your toes. It's kind of like the WrestleMania 18 Rock Hogan match. You know that completely flipped the script. Hogan was supposed to be the heel. Didn't work out that way by a long shot. So all Lawler and I just switched jerseys and became a Hogan guy person, and I just told the story as we saw it. And so instead, I think a lot of young announcers would probably have just worked their ass off to, uh, oh hell, I don't know, to to go the company line. Rock's the baby face. We got to make him a baby face. Well, if they're not buying it, there's no reason to make him a baby face. Go with what you're hearing and what you're seeing. It makes it so much easier. And I thought Lawler and I did a nice job on that match, but it just points out an illustration of how all that could work out if you just follow the audience. There's nothing more important than communicating with your audience, whether it be on television or pay per view or in the arena for that matter. So I always enjoyed the Canadian audience. They're a passionate. Some of the most passionate moments in the Attitude Era, in the very early part of it, was on Monday Night Raw like for example, like in Halifax. You know, I'd never been to Halifax before. I remember we all flew in on Saturday, which was very unusual for a Monday Night Raw. And that was the show that, do you remember when Vince pulled the soccer jersey over Brett's head?
Absolutely.
That was pretty dramatic. And it wasn't rehearsed or advertised because I was around those guys all day. They felt it and they did it and it worked.